What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to another episode of the JT Sports Podcast. I'm your host, JT. Coming on here to give you guys a couple of my NFL Week 10 thoughts. We're going to be discussing CJ Stroud leading the Texans to a huge win on the road against Joe Burrow and the Cincinnati Bengals. Also got some thoughts on Browns, Ravens, and Kyler Murray's return. Before we begin, leave a like, subscribe to the channel. Remember that we're not just a YouTube channel. Every episode of the podcast is available in audio format on all podcasting platforms. Apple, Google, Spotify, Amazon, wherever you get your podcast from. The JT Sports Podcast is available. If you enjoyed this episode, we will greatly appreciate it if you give us a 5-star review on Apple and Spotify and share this episode with your friends, family members, and acquaintances. CJ Stroud continues his unbelievable rookie season. I don't think too many people expected, myself included, for the Houston Texans to be able to go on the road and pull off this win against Joe Burrow and the Cincinnati Bengals, who were red hot going into this game. And the Texans had a bunch of guys who they had listed on the injury report. And with the amount of injuries that they were dealing with, it was kind of hard to see them winning this game. But when you got CJ Stroud, there's not a single game that you don't have a chance at being able to win. And all my years of watching the National Football League, CJ Stroud is the best rookie quarterback that I've ever watched. When Andrew Luck got drafted by the Indianapolis Colts, he immediately made them a playoff contender. They didn't have a great offensive line or a star-studded group of wide receivers Andrew Luck's first season. But when you get drafted number 1 or 2nd overall as a quarterback, you're going into a position where you're going to have to overcome some limitations. You're not going to be playing with a great team. The Houston Texans, their offensive line has not been that good, and they also haven't really been good running the football up until this game. But CJ Stroud has elevated the players around him, and he's rejuvenated and brought hope and optimism back to the Houston Texans fan base. This dude went toe-to-toe with Joe Burrow, who arguably is the second best quarterback in the league right now behind Patrick Mahomes in most people's opinions. CJ Stroud in this game, yes, he had a couple of turnovers. He had 2 fumbles early. He had an interception late in this game, the Cam Taylor-Britt, which allowed Cincinnati to get back into this game and tie it up. But you want to know the sign of a great quarterback? Anytime you give your franchise quarterback the ball late in the game and you say, hey, go win us the game, and he's able to do it on a consistent basis, that's the sign that you have something special at the quarterback position. CJ Stroud in this game, even after that interception, he never got rattled, never lost his cool. He kept his poise, and he delivered when Houston needed him to deliver the most. And that was put them in position to get the game-winning field goal to walk out of this game with the victory. And he did something similar against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers when he had less than a minute left to drive Houston down the field. He drives the Texans down the field and hits Tank Dell in the back of the end zone for the game-sealing interception against Tampa Bay. CJ Stroud, what we're seeing out of him is a phenomenally. I don't think we're ever going to see a rookie quarterback have this kind of performance ever again. Now, I know a lot of us are really high on Caleb Williams, but I don't think Caleb Williams is going to be able to come in and immediately make a team a playoff contender the way CJ Stroud has. CJ Stroud is having a masterclass season. He doesn't turn the football over that much. He makes great decisions with the ball, and he outplayed Joe Burrow in the second half of this game. Joe Burrow, yes, he had some really good plays. That 64-yard touchdown that he had to Jamar Chase on the run was a beautiful throw. But in the second half, CJ Stroud just looked more in control than what Joe Burrow did. Joe Burrow, he also had a couple of mistakes that ultimately costed Cincinnati this ball game. You see, CJ Stroud, to me, is a top 5 quarterback in the league right now. I don't think the gap between Joe Burrow and CJ Stroud is that huge. And you may be like, oh, JT, like, you're giving CJ Stroud way too much props this early. Like, you don't need to see a guy like CJ Stroud to play a whole season to know that this dude is just it. Some guys, you see it right out the gate. With Andrew Luck, he was a top 5, top 10 quarterback as soon as he entered the league. Same thing with Joe Burrow, Justin Herbert. You don't need a lot of time to be able to point out greatness. CJ Stroud, not only has he put the Houston Texans right within reach of making it to the playoffs because they currently have the 7th seed, but he also has put the Texans in position that if the Jaguars keep slipping up, they could potentially win this division. And I think they got a very good chance of being able to do that, because one thing that Trevor Lawrence doesn't do a good job at is being consistent. He doesn't play his best football at home, and he kind of struggles with taking care of the football. CJ Stroud, he's consistent on the road, at home. He takes better care of the football than what Trevor Lawrence does. Trevor Lawrence just tends to get a little bit reckless at times. You don't see that out of CJ Stroud. And the quarterbacks who go the furthest in the postseason are the quarterbacks who minimize mistakes. Yes, you are going to have rookie mistakes out of a guy like CJ Stroud, but he's able to overcome them just because of how good he is. What separates the great quarterbacks from the average quarterbacks in the NFL are their ability to overcome mistakes. Joe Burrow, Mahomes, Hurts, CJ Stroud, they can make several mistakes and still put their team in positions to win because of how good they are. Meanwhile, guys like Dak Prescott, Derek Carr, they don't have that ability to overcome them having multiple mistakes and still finding ways for their teams to win. Houston doesn't have that great of a team. Most people thought that this team was just going to be just as bad as what they were last season, and right now, they're in the thick of the playoff chase right now. CJ Stroud is having a rookie season that, to be honest with you, we're probably not going to see ever again. I don't think you can watch a single Houston Texans game and not feel like CJ Stroud is playing at an MVP caliber level. The MVP award is supposed to be given to the most valuable player on the football team. You take CJ Stroud off the Houston Texans, they probably only have 1 or 2 wins at that. What he's doing right now is God's work. He has brought hope to this franchise. He has this Houston Texans team playing at a level that we haven't seen since the early days of Bill O'Brien when he had Deshaun Watson going. Once Bill O'Brien traded away DeAndre Hopkins and everybody else, all hope was lost. You had Lovie Smith as your head coach last year. You were mad and infuriated at the fact that you didn't have the opportunity to get the number 1 overall pick. But everything worked out in your favor because you drafted the right quarterback in CJ Stroud. What has impressed me the most about CJ Stroud, outside of his poise and late game situations, has been his ability to throw the football on the run. Coming out of Ohio State, I never felt like CJ Stroud was going to be great throwing the ball outside the pocket on the run, but he's proved me wrong. And it's not like I thought CJ Stroud was going to be bad. I just thought that he was your prototypical modern-day pocket passer that was really good operating within the pocket. He had good enough athleticism that you had to account for it. But I never thought that we would see CJ Stroud getting outside the pocket, improvising, doing the spin-a-rooney, making guys miss, avoiding sacks, and finding open guys downfield such as Noah Brown. Noah Brown had the best game of his NFL career. John Mechie, Tank Dell, fairly young wide receivers are having very good campaigns because of how good CJ Stroud is. Great ball placement, throws with great anticipation, and has a really high football IQ. Nobody gives a damn about what he scored on that S2 cognitive test. It doesn't matter. CJ Stroud said, I'm a football player at the end of the day, and he's looking like a damn good one with how well he's played up to this point for the Houston Texans. Lou Anarumo is one of the best defensive coordinators in the NFL. He more than likely is going to be a head coach around this time next year. And the fact that his defense got diced up by CJ Stroud is a testament to how much of a phenomenon this dude truly is. We're not going to find too many rookie quarterbacks who can come into their situation in their first year and be able to elevate the team the way CJ Stroud has. He definitely deserves to be an MVP consideration with the way that he's played for the Houston Texans and the position that he has put this franchise in. Houston Texans fans now have a reason to watch Texans games now. And they got a reason to expect to be in the playoffs because the Jaguars, they're inconsistent. Yes, they were riding high on a 4 or 5 game win streak, but they got brought back to reality by Brock Purdy and the 49ers. And if they play the Houston Texans again, it definitely could be a situation where the Texans beat the Jags and take control of the AFC South division. And even if they can't win this division, and the AFC, where you have the majority of the NFL's best quarterbacks residing in, you need great quarterback play if you want to be able to not just be a playoff team, but be able to make a deep playoff run. With the way CJ Stroud is playing, even though Houston may not have an insanely talented roster, they could win a playoff game maybe. Andrew Luck was able to do it. Why can't CJ Stroud? CJ Stroud has been able to live up to the expectations that comes with being drafted second or first overall. You see, Bryce Young, he's in a crappy situation. But at the same time, you still have to be able to overcome limitations around you. And that's what CJ Stroud has done such a great job at that. He's been able to make the players around him better. He's a great leader. You know, anytime CJ Stroud talks, his teammates listen. He has already earned the respect of not just his teammates, but his coaches. Do you know how much respect you got to have for your coaches to say, go win us the game, and you're just a rookie quarterback? Most rookie quarterbacks, the coaching staff, they're trying to be safe with them. They're trying to be conservative, not with CJ Stroud. CJ Stroud is a rookie quarterback, but he's playing like he's a 12, 15-year vet. His poise, his moxie, his calm demeanor, this dude never gets rattled, especially when the game is on the line. Like CJ Stroud is having an unbelievable rookie season. This is without a doubt the greatest rookie season that we've ever seen out of a rookie quarterback. Even Andrew Luck, his first season, he had a similar impact, but not the way CJ Stroud has had on Houston. And it's infectious. Not only is it carrying into the locker room, but it's carrying into the fan base. Now, if you're a Houston Texans fan, you look at any team on the schedule and you'd be like, yeah, like they may be more talented than us, but do they have CJ Stroud? Houston got a big win over the Cincinnati Bengals, 30-27. And if they keep playing this brand of football, they could easily find a way to win the AFC South because the Jacksonville Jaguars are not a consistent team. They may be more talented than Houston, but can you trust Trevor Lawrence to take care of the football and minimize mistakes? That's why Joe Burrow, despite not being as talented as Josh Allen and Patrick Mahomes, has been able to make it out of the AFC and appear in the Super Bowl because he takes care of the football, doesn't make a lot of mistakes when it matters the most, and he elevates the guys around him. Same thing with CJ Stroud. Don't be surprised if Houston not only gets into the playoffs, but if they're able to win a playoff game. Now, I don't think they'll make it further than the divisional round because eventually you're going to go up against a team that has just as good as quarterback play of what you've been getting out of CJ Stroud. They're going to be well coached and they're just going to have the better overall team. And there's only so much you can scheme. But CJ Stroud, man, like, if you're asking me who should be top 5 in the MVP race right now, it definitely should be CJ Stroud in that conversation. And he definitely, in my book, is a top 5 quarterback. I don't need a whole season to know if CJ Stroud is a top 5 quarterback or not. Sometimes when you see greatness, it just shows itself at you and it keeps pushing itself in your face. Like, there's only so much you can keep denying of giving the right of naming CJ Stroud a top 5, top 7 quarterback in this league. You feel me? CJ Stroud, he's him and he's proven that. And it's a large reason why the Houston Texans are in the position that they're in right now. 5-4, opportunity to make it to the playoffs and possibly winning this division. And for Cincinnati, this is a bad-breaking loss for you. Because now, you know, you're in danger of missing out on the playoffs. If Houston has a better record than you or the same record as you, and you're not able to find a way to get into the 7th or 6th seed or win this division, you could be in trouble. You really could. And you play Lamarvelous and the Ravens on Thursday night. You lose that game, you go right back to having a 500 record, and you're even in more danger of missing the playoffs because the Browns and the Steelers are ahead of you. And even though they don't got great offenses, their defenses are really good. Cincinnati has major concerns on the offensive line. Their offensive line was getting pushed back by that D-line of Houston. This offensive line still can't get it right. Joe Burrow, he's been playing some great football the last couple of weeks. But Cincinnati, this was a really deflating loss. They got a lot riding on them going into that Thursday night matchup against the Baltimore Ravens. This may be the biggest Thursday night game that we've seen in the last couple of years. The Browns beat the Baltimore Ravens 33-31 on the road. When this game first started with the Deshaun Watson pick six to Kyle Hamilton, and then Baltimore went up 14-0, it looked like Baltimore was going to win this game at home the same way they were able to stomp Seattle and the Detroit Lions. But Lamar Jackson did not have a good game. Okay, he had an interception before halftime that he was trying to hit Rashad Bateman downfield deep, but I don't know if it was miscommunication or if the ball got tipped at the line or if Lamar Jackson just underthrew it, but it was a terrible interception. And then in the second half, Deshaun Watson outplayed Lamar Jackson. Lamar Jackson didn't have a great performance in this game, and he's a large reason why the Ravens lost this game. And when you look at the Ravens' previous losses, you can't really put them on Lamar because the receivers let him down. But in this game, Lamar Jackson, he let the Ravens down. You can't be in the MVP discussion, a front runner at that for the award, and then throw a back-breaking pick six to Greg Newsome that gives the Cleveland Browns hope. Deshaun Watson struggled out the gate in this game. At one point, you question if Deshaun Watson was even going to last because he got injured. He had to leave early to go to the locker room. But one thing I'll give Deshaun Watson a lot of props for is this dude is tough as hell. He may be one of the toughest quarterbacks in the NFL. He was getting his ankle rolled up on. He was taking big hits on the sideline, but he kept getting up and putting the Browns in position to still have a chance to win this game. And when they were down 2 touchdowns in the fourth quarter, I thought the game was all but over. I changed the channel to another game. And then my homeboy hit me up and he said, hey man, you better go back and watch that Browns-Ravens game. And I look at the score and the Browns end up coming all the way back from 14 down and making it a ball game. And I'm like, oh, snap. It doesn't matter. The Ravens are still going to find a way to pull this game out. But the Browns, they just completely neutralized this Ravens offense in the second half. When the Ravens can't get the run game going, yes, they do have the ability to throw the football downfield, but they still are a team that is going to win and lose the majority of their games based on their ability to run the football, and they didn't have a lot of success doing that, especially in the second half. Meanwhile, Cleveland, on the other hand, although they didn't get a great performance all around by Deshaun Watson, Jerome Ford had 100+ on the ground in this game. And Deshaun Watson, to his credit, it's not about how you start. It's about how you finish. He finished this game out completing 14 of his passes? Now, you still want to see him play a complete all-around game if you're a Browns fan because he's getting paid $250 million fully guaranteed. You need him to play the same way he did in the second half for a whole entire 60 minutes and for the remainder of this season if you're going to have a chance at not only being able to win this division, but being able to make a deep playoff run if you make it to the postseason. Deshaun Watson, this dude is really inconsistent. His best game up to this point has been against the Tennessee Titans and maybe the Arizona Cardinals, which isn't really too much to write home about. And when you look at the way this game started for the Ravens, you probably thought that this game was going to go the same way the Seattle Seahawks game and the Detroit Lions game did. But the difference between those games and the way that this game went is the fact that Lamar Jackson didn't cost the Baltimore Ravens with costly mistakes. And the Ravens were able to have success running the football, and they had a lot of success on defense. Cleveland has one of the best defenses that they've ever had in the history of their franchise. Jim Schwartz definitely has overhauled this defense. Looking at this defense this year and the way that it played last year, it's a night and day difference. They got athletes on the front seven who can neutralize Lamar Jackson. Lamar Jackson, he may be the most athletically gifted quarterback to ever enter the NFL, but Myles Garrett has to be one of the most athletically gifted edge rushers to ever play this game. Like they had a good game plan for being able to contain Lamar. And if the Ravens get put in situations where they got to continue to win games, not having the ability to lean on the run game, and you got to ask Lamar Jackson to throw you to a win, I don't know if that's a consistent formula for them to be able to win, especially in the postseason. You see, when you get into the postseason, it's important that you have a quarterback that can minimize mistakes. And if he does have a couple of mistakes, he has to be able to overcome them. I don't think Lamar Jackson is at that point yet where he's good enough to overcome mistakes. And there were a couple of other factors that gave the Browns the win. Like, once they had that blocked field goal, the momentum shifted. And then when you threw that pick six, the Greg Newsome, the momentum was all on Cleveland's side. And all they had to do was get in field goal range and win this thing, and it pretty much was wraps. You see, the Browns, for some way, somehow this season, have been able to win games the same way the Steelers have. Not having great quarterback play, having great special teams play, making big stops when it matters on defense. That's the way the Browns have been able to win ball games. But if Deshaun Watson can finally wake up, I'm really scared as a Steelers fan how good this Browns team can truly be. And the Browns were down two of their starting offensive tackles who I believe are out for the season. And this Ravens pass rush at times was definitely getting home, but Deshaun Watson, he made some really big runs in this game as well, especially in the fourth quarter down the stretch. You got to give a lot of props to the way Deshaun Watson played in the second half and the way this Browns defense was able to neutralize this Ravens offense in the second half. And with this win, Cleveland, if they beat the Pittsburgh Steelers next week, and the Ravens lose to Cincinnati on Thursday night, they could take control of the AFC North. There's a lot of pressure on Baltimore, not just being able to win this division so they can have a home field playoff game, but also being able to stay in contention for the 1 seed, because if Lamar has to go on the road and play Joe Burrow or Patrick Mahomes, you kind of question his ability to show up on the road and take care of the football. And this was a prime example why people are hesitant to believe that the Ravens can win it all with Lamar Jackson at the helm. I think that this game was a wake-up call for the Baltimore Ravens and company that this team may not be what we thought they were. Now, I still believe this is the best team in the NFL from a talent standpoint. One loss isn't going to deter me from getting off that take, and I do believe that they can bounce back this Thursday night, but this was a really devastating loss for the Baltimore Ravens. Kyler Murray led the Arizona Cardinals to a win in his first game back from that ACL injury, and he had a really good performance. Now, I thought that the Falcons were going to win this game because I thought he was going to look a little rusty, but he started off this game fairly hot. I believe he started off 6-9 in the first quarter, and then he kind of started to slow down a little bit. But for the most part, this was a really good performance that we saw out of Kyler Murray. And the tall tale sign that you have a franchise quarterback is that in the fourth quarter, with the game on the lines, you can put the ball in his hands and say, hey, go win us the game, and he can pull through and get it done. That's what Kyler Murray was able to do. He was making accurate throws, not just outside of the pocket, which we know Kyler Murray notoriously for being able to do, but he was also making some really good throws from within the pocket. And not just that, but he had a couple of nice throws to tight end Trey McBride, who's looking like his go-to target. And he had another good throw outside the numbers to Marquise Brown that would have been a touchdown, but he dropped it. His athleticism is still there. Now, I don't know if he has the same amount of athleticism that he had prior to the injury. It looked like he was still kind of starting to work his way back a little bit, still getting into the rhythm of things, but he had a read option that he scored a touchdown on right before halftime. Yes, he did throw a mind-boggling interception through the middle of the fourth quarter, but outside of that, he made a lot of big plays to keep Arizona in this game. He had an incredible run on 3rd down and 10, spinning out of pressure to keep the game alive for Arizona with less than 2 minutes left in the game. You see, Arizona, the only way you draft Caleb Williams is if you truly believe that Caleb Williams is a better quarterback than what Kyler Murray is right now, and I don't believe he is. Kyler Murray still, to me, looks like a top 10 quarterback in the NFL. And anytime you have a top 10 quarterback and you're going up against a Falcons team that has a Taylor Heinicke or a Desmond Ridder at quarterback, you should be able to win these kinds of games. Arizona doesn't have a great team around Kyler Murray. The offensive line is okay. He was still kind of running for his life back there. You saw what they did the week before Kyler Murray came back when they traded Joshua Dobbs and started Clayton Tune. They were barely able to muster anything offensively. At that, Kyler Murray, seeing him back underneath center for the Arizona Cardinals is a breath of fresh air. And I'm really intrigued in seeing how many more games the Arizona Cardinals are going to be able to win this year with Kyler Murray starting at quarterback. This was a team that wasn't as bad as what we initially thought before Kyler Murray came back. You know, they were able to upset the Dallas Cowboys, and most of their games have been fairly competitive. With the fully healthy Kyler Murray now, shoot, they probably won't make it to the playoffs, but they're definitely going to be a handful, and you definitely don't want to play this Arizona Cardinals team when Kyler Murray really starts to hit the ball running and he really gets the flow of this offense. You got to give hats off to not just Kyler Murray, but Jonathan Gannon, his offensive coordinator. Like, there were people who were saying that Kyler Murray shouldn't have played a game this season. They should just already throw the right flag on the season and look to trade him for a first-round pick. But when you already got a franchise quarterback, why end up investing another first-round pick in one when you can just use that pick, trade down, and acquire more assets? Imagine if Arizona can get Marvin Harrison Jr. and you pair him up with Marquise Brown, Trey McBride, Kyler Murray, a fully healthy James Conner. You improve that offensive line and you can sign a couple of marquee free agents on defense. Arizona, they may not be able to become a Super Bowl contender next season within the span of one off season, but you definitely like their chances of them being able to make it to the playoffs next year. There's no reason to trade away Kyler Murray and drive Caleb Williams when you already have somebody who essentially is a top 10 quarterback. Unless you know for certain that Caleb Williams is going to be better than what Kyler Murray is right now and that he has more potential than Kyler Murray, it makes no sense to draft him. Continue to build your team up, trade down, get more assets, and build around Kyler Murray. People seem to forget that Kyler Murray's first couple of years, he was a Pro Bowler and he was in the MVP discussion prior to Cliff Kingsbury getting fired. And then all of a sudden he has a bad playoff loss against the LA Rams. And then he ends up tearing his ACL and people start to write the dude off like he's a trash quarterback. When he's healthy, he's one of the best quarterbacks in the National Football League. And when you look at the Atlanta Falcons, this team, their season continues to go left. Taylor Heinicke had to leave. Desmond Ridder came in. And although Desmond Ridder didn't cost you the game, the defense cost you the game. And Arthur Smith, this is a game that you were expected to win. The Arizona Cardinals, even with the healthy Kyler Murray, they still didn't have a better roster than you. Imagine Kyler Murray playing quarterback for the Atlanta Falcons right now, throwing in Kyle Pitts, Drake London, and having Bijan Robinson in the backfield. They probably are a playoff team. If you're the Falcons, you look at this game today and you say to yourself, you're Arthur Smith, like, damn, this is why we need to go ahead and find us a Kyler Murray at quarterback or try to find us the long-term answer at the quarterback position. Kyler Murray, to be able to put this team in position to win in his first game back was incredibly impressive, where it was easy to assume that he was going to have a little bit of rust to knock off. But this dude kind of hit the ground running, and although 19 of 32, 249 passing yards, an interception, 33 rushing yards, and a touchdown isn't an impressive stat sheet. It's impressive when you look at the fact that Kyler Murray did this missing a lot of time, not playing football in a year, and still being able to come in his first game of this season and lead the Arizona Cardinals to a come-from-behind victory with the ball in his hands to end the game. That definitely has to earn you a lot of points with this organization as far as you remaining the franchise quarterback of this team. And I like the fact that Jonathan Gannon and this general manager, Monte Austin-Ford, are allowing Kyler Murray to go out there and prove himself once again as the franchise quarterback of this organization. This is it for this episode of the JT Sports Podcast. I appreciate you guys for tuning in. If you enjoy, leave a like, subscribe to the channel, share the podcast with your friends, family members, and acquaintances. Leave us a 5-star review. Remember that every episode of the podcast that's uploaded on the YouTube channel is available in audio format on all podcasting platforms: Apple, Google, Spotify, Amazon, wherever you get your podcast from. The JT Sports Podcast is available. Appreciate you guys for listening to this episode, and I will see you guys shortly with another episode of the JT Sports Podcast.